Shabbat Shalom. For those of you here on this bright sunny morning, and for those of you somewhere else on this bright sunny morning, perhaps watching online from your patio or your garden or the beach or wherever, we will be doing Shabbat morning service number 2. And if the songs and everything sound vaguely familiar, it's because we used our same sheet from what we had prepared for 2 weeks ago. So if you think you've heard it all before, you probably have, but not the Torah reading, that'll be different, but short, very short. No time to prepare. So we will begin with Ma Tovu, page 1112. Done. 112. Yeah.
Ma Tovu, Ma Tovu.
Eternal God, a mystery surrounds my life. What came before it and what lies beyond it are shrouded in darkness. But in the darkness is your presence, and in the mystery your love. No mind can grasp the splendor of your being. No tongue express the majesty of your works. Yet there are times when we sense a reality that is beyond our mortal sight. May this Sabbath be such a time for us. Help us to hear your voice. Help us to hear your voice, to find your image in our souls, and to be at peace. It's probably not you, Michael. It's probably... Craig, can you just check the mic and the hearing thing? Because obviously I'm not going to scream at everybody. But you should be able to hear. It's not fair. That's why we have the equipment.
So I'm deaf.
Well, I know, but we do have a mic and we do have a hearing loop, so he's just turned it up or on, so hopefully it'll be better.
So turn the volume up. Is that right? Oh,
So I think he's turned the volume up.
I should have a hearing aid.
Do you want to sing Elohai Nishama?
We're on page 113.
And we give thanks for the soul which has been returned to us this day. And I think I always like this prayer because I think it's very important that we remember that in Judaism, we are inherently good. And we may make bad choices in our lives, but it's a very different thought. So we remember that the soul that we have is a pure soul.
Elohai neshama shenatata bi tehorai. 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 Elohai neshama shenatata bi tehorai.
Let's read this prayer together in English. The top of page 113. My God, the soul you have given me is pure, for you have created and formed it and breathed it into me, and you sustain it within me. So long as there is a soul within me, I will give thanks to you, eternal one, my God and God of my ancestors, sovereign of all worlds, guide of every human soul. We praise you, O God, in whose hands are the souls of all the living and the spirits of all flesh. Baruch she'amar v'haya ha'olam, Baruch hu. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech ha'olam, ha'mechulal b'fi amo, משובח ומפואר בלשון חסידיו ויעבדיו, בשבחות וזמירות נגדל לך ונמליכך מלכנו, יחיד חי העולמים. ברוך אתה אדוני, מלך מחולל בתשבחות. To you the stars of morning sing, from you their radiance bright did spring, and steadfast in their vigils, day and night. Your angels, flooded with fervor, ring your praise. They teach the holy ones to bring into your house the breath of early light. And we continue reading responsively from Psalm 19. The heavens declare the glory of God. Day into day utters speech. Yet there is no speech, there are no words. And still their call goes out to all the earth. God's teaching is perfect. God's word is unfailing. God's precepts are right. God's commandments are clear. God's doctrine is pure. God's guidance is true. They are more to be desired than gold, than any amount of fine gold. Your servant pays heed to them. Who is aware of errors? Hold back your servant also from willful sins. Then I shall be blameless. Yichul ratzoni m'refi v'higion libi lifanecha Adonai tzuri v'goali. This is the service we were supposed to be doing, wasn't it?
Panim zimerot v'shirim erog, erog, ki elecha nafshi tarog, tarog. Nafshi chemdat b'tzel yadecha, ladat kol rasodecha. Mide dabari b'kvodecha, homeli b'eldodecha, yerav nashi, halacha,
Oseh shalom b'mrama.
halacha, ki nafshi ta'aro, elecha, elecha.
Please rise and turn to page 135 for Yishtabach. Yishtabach Shemcha La'ad Malkeinu, Ha'el HaMelech HaKadol V'HaKadosh V'Shamayim U'Va'aretz. Ki Lecha Na'eh Adonai Eloheinu V'Elohei Avotenu, Shir U'Shvacha Halel V'Zimra, Berachot V'Hodaot, Me'ata V'Ad Olam, Baruch Atah Adonai, Habocher b'shirei zimra.
Baruch hu et Adonai havorach. Baruch Adonai havorach le'olam va'ed.
We can resume our seats. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, yoser or uvorei choshech, oseh shalom uvorei et hakol, hame'er la'aretz v'ledarim alecha berachamim, uvtuvo mechadesh b'chol yom tamid, ma'aseh v'reishit. Ma rabu ma'asecha Adonai, kulam b'chochma asita, melach haaretz kinyanecha. Titbarach Adonai Eloheinu, al shevach ma'aseh yadecha, b'yal ma'orei or, she'asita yifa'arucha selah. Baruch atah Adonai, yoser hame'orot. Let's continue together in the middle of page 136. Great is your love for us, eternal God, and abundant your compassion. Our ancestors trusted in you, and you taught them the laws of life. So be gracious to us and teach us. Incline our hearts to hear your words, to know and understand, to learn and teach, and with love to uphold the truths of your Torah. Enlighten us with your teaching. Make us faithful to your commandments, and wholehearted in the love and awe of your name. For in love you summon us to serve you and proclaim your unity. Praise you, O God. In love you have called your people Israel to serve you. Please rise.
Open up our eyes, teach us how to live. Fill our hearts with joy and all the love you have to give. Gather us in peace, lead us to your name. Then we shall know that you are one. Then we shall know that we are one. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. 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 Baruch Shem Kavod Malchuto, Le'olam Va'ed. Baruch Shem Kavod Malchuto, Le'olam Va'ed. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad.
Ve'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha b'chol levavcha u'v'chol nafshecha u'v'chol me'odecha v'hayu hadvarim ha'eleh asher anochi mitzavcha hayom al levavecha v'shinantam levanecha v'dibarta bam v'shivtecha v'vitecha u'vlechtecha v'derech u'v'shokbecha u'v'kumecha u'kshatam le'ot al yadecha v'hayu le'totafot b'einecha u'ktavtam al mezuzot be'techa u'v'isharecha. We can resume our seats.
Leman tizkaru v'asitem et kol mitzvotai v'yitem kadoshim le'Elohechem ani Adonai Elohechem asher hotzeti etchem me'eretz Mitzrayim liot lachem le'Elohim ani Adonai Elohechem.
Let's continue together. Good and beautiful and true, sound, established, and enduring are these words, now and forever. True it is, Eternal One, that you are sovereign God and Redeemer, as you are the God and Redeemer of our ancestors. You are our Maker, the rock of our salvation. We have known you always as our helper and our liberator. There is no God but you. Truly you are first and you are last. We have no Redeemer but you. You redeemed us from Egypt and freed us from the house of bondage. Then with great joy, Moses, Miriam, and all Israel together sang to you this song.
Mi hamocha ba'elim Adonai, mi hamocha nedabach kodesh norah tehilo osef elei norah tehilo osef elei.
Shira Chadasha Shebachol Geolim L'Shimchal Sfat Hayam Yachad Kulam Hodu V'him Lechu V'yamaru.
Adonai imlo le'olam va'ed. Adonai imlo le'olam va'ed. So Israel, Kuma Bezrat Yisrael Aleinu, Adonai Tzebaot Shemo, Kadosh Yisrael, Baruch Atah Adonai, God God Israel, Israel.
We rise on page 140 for the Tefillah.
Adonai sefatai tiftach, ufi agi tehilatecha. Eternal God, open my lips, that my mouth may declare your praise.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu v'Elohei avotenu v'imotenu, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak, v'Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, Elohei Leah. Ha'el Hagadol Hagibor v'Hanora, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim, V'Konei Hakol, V'Zocher Chazdei Avot v'Imachot, Umevi Gula Livnei V'neihem, L'ma'an Shemo B'Ahava. Melech Ozer Umoshiach Magen, Baruch atah Adonai, Magen Avraham, Ezra Sarah. Atah Gibor Le'olam Adonai, Machayei Meitim Atah, Rab LaHoshia. Mashiv Haruach, Umorid HaGeshem, Mazriach HaShemesh, Umorid HaTal.
Mechalchel chaim bechesed, mechayei meitim berachamim rabim, somek noflim v'rofech olim, umatir asurim, umekayem emunato lishenei afah. Mi hamocha ba'al gevrot, umido melach, melech meimit umechayeh, umatzmiach Yeshua.
Ne'eman atah l'chachayot eitim, Baruch atah Adonai, Machayei hametim.
Kadesh et shemcha ba'olam, Hashem shemakdishim oto mishmei marom, kagatuv al yad nevi'echa, al yad nevi'echa. Kadosh, 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 Adonai tzavaot.
Kevodo malei olam.
Baruch kavod Adonai mimkomo.
Mimkomecha malkeinu tofia, v'timloch aleinu, ki mechakim anachnu lach.
Yimloch Adonai le'olam, Elohai Zion, Ador. Netzakim, krushatka nagdish. Netzakim, krushatka nagdish. Dovado, nagid gad lecha. Dovado, nagid gad lecha. Shivchecha Eloheinu mipinu lo yamush am va'ev. Shivchecha Eloheinu mipinu lo yamush le'olam va'ev.
Baruch atah Adonai, Ha'el HaKadosh. We can resume our seats. And we continue together on the bottom of page 142. You inspired our ancestors to hallow this day for your service. When upon its coming we pause to contemplate our life, we learn anew that we do not live by bread alone, but also by the spiritual nourishment we receive when we open ourselves to your influence. We thank you for the Sabbath day and for the opportunity it offers to enhance the quality of our lives. We thank you for its joy and for its peace. May our worship help us to take into our hearts its message of holiness and consecrate all our days by devotion to what is true, beautiful, and good.
Yismachu b'malchutecha, Yismachu b'malchutecha, Shomrei Shabbat b'korei oneg, Amakatshe Shavi, Amakatshe Shavi, Kulam Yisbou Yitangu Mituvecha, V'hashvi, V'hashvi, Ratzita bo V'kidashto, Chemdat Yamim, Oto Karata, Zechel Amasei Bereshit. Eloheinu, Elohei Avotenu, Ritzei b'mnuchateinu, Katshenu b'mitzvotecha, V'ten helcheinu b'toratecha, Zabeinu mituvecha, V'samcheinu b'shuatecha, V'tahel beinu, Le'avdecha ba'emet. V'hanchilenu Adonai Eloheinu, B'ahav u'ratzon, Shabbat kodshecha, Shabbat kodshecha, V'yanuchu v'Yisrael, V'yanuchu v'Yisrael, Mekadeshei Shemecha.
Baruch atah Adonai Mikadesh HaShabbat.
Say Adonai Eloheinu, Amecha Yisrael, U'tefilatam ba'ava techabel. Tamid avodat Yisrael, Amecha Yisrael, Amecha Baruch atah
Continue together. We give thanks that you, Eternal One, our God, as you were the God of our ancestors. You are the rock of our life, power that shields us in every age. We thank and praise you for our lives, which are in your hand, for our souls, which are in your keeping, for the signs of your presence we encounter every day, and for your wondrous gifts at all times, morning, noon, and night. We praise you, O God, source of goodness, to whom our thanks are due.
Sim shalom tova uvracha, sim shalom tova uvracha, chen v'chesed v'rachamim. Sim shalom tova uvracha, sim shalom tova uvracha, chen v'chesed v'rachamim. Aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael amecha, sim shalom. Aleinu ve'al kol yoshvei tevel, sim shalom. Sim shalom tova uvracha, sim shalom tova uvracha, chen v'chesed v'rachamim.
Grant peace, welfare, and blessing, grace, love, and mercy to us and to all Israel, your people. As a loving parent, bless us with the light of your presence. For by the light of your presence, eternal God, you have revealed to us the law of life, a love of kindness and righteousness, blessing and mercy, life and peace. For it is good in your sight that your people Israel and all peoples be blessed at all times with your gift of peace. We praise you, O God, the source of peace. Take some time now for our own silent prayers and reflections.
Yiul ratzon imrefi, Yiul ratzon imrefi, ve'gion libi lefanecha, Adonai tzuri v'goali. Oh, may the words of my mouth, the meditation of my heart, be acceptable before you, O God, my rock and my redeemer. Say shalom bimroma, Uya say shalom aleinu, V'chol Yisrael, V'chol yoshvei tevel, Amen.
Before we actually go to reading of Torah, I'm going to do something we haven't done for a while, which is take a look at the themed reading for the week, because in our Siddur there are themes that match up with the Torah readings. And this section of Torah readings are not necessarily my favorites because they all talk about, in some way, various sacrifices, various temple sacrifices. But what the authors of our Siddur have made of this, for this particular week, Shmini, is a theme about holiness. And indeed, of course, that's what the temple sacrifices were meant for, to allow people to somehow have a way of moving close to God, and to try to find that holiness in their life. Well, we don't quite function that way, because obviously our way of moving close to God is through prayer and reflection. But I thought it might be worth taking a bit of time to just look at this. So I'm going to ask you to turn to page 257. And we're just going to read a bit of this. I'm going to let you get there first before we read a bit of it. And it starts off talking about divine holiness. Holiness is a divine quality, the one that more than any other evokes awe and reverence. And holiness is the essence of all moral perfection, purity unsullied by any breath of evil. True holiness can be ascribed only to divinity. And then towards the bottom of page 257, it continues. Yet in some measure, the divine holiness transfers itself to whatever comes into association with it. Much as a fluorescent substance exposed to light becomes luminous, so we speak of holy times and places set apart for the worship of God, of holy languages and books, in which God speaks to us, or we speak to or about God. Above all, human beings can become radiant with holiness. The story is told of a chassid who was ushered into the tzaddik's presence for an audience. He was trembling with awe to be in the same room as the holy man. When the tzaddik noticed this, he said, "Any piece of glass will reflect light. Tremble at the light, not at the glass." And there's another story on page 259, a story about the Dubner Maggid. The Vilna Gaon, the mightiest scholar of his time, asked him once to tell him his faults. The Maggid at first declined. Finally, upon being pressed, he said this: "You are, of course, the most pious man of your age. You study night and day, retired from the world, surrounded by the rows of your books, the Holy Ark, the faces of devout scholars. You have reached a high degree of holiness. But go down in the marketplace, Rabbi, with the rest of the Jews. Endure their work, their stains, their distractions. Mingle in the world. Hear the skepticism and irreligion they hear. Take the blows they take. Submit to the ordinary trials of the ordinary Jew, the ordinary person, in fact. Let us see then if you will remain the Vilna Gaon." They say the Gaon broke down and wept. So I think sometimes it's very easy to be, surrounded by books and thoughts, but living in the real world, and especially living the life that some people have to lead. And that was actually just a little bit of a reminder, as we were talking earlier about people trying to live on benefits and then trying to work, and then they end up worse off because it's so expensive to travel and it costs so much to put their children in daycare. And it's just so easy, I think, sometimes for us, for those of us who live relatively well off and relatively sheltered lives, to forget what the struggle's like. And I think, even even with benefits, the family that KCRS has resettled, there's a number of benefits which they would qualify for, but because they're fairly new refugees, they've only been here 4 months, and they're still learning English, so they really can't work yet or anything, they've been benefit capped. And so they come up several £100 a month short of technically what they would be entitled to with the number of children they have and their ages and so forth. And I guess I just think, it's just so easy that we forget the struggles that so many other people have. And then we've just watched all of the people coming out of Ukraine, people who've lost their homes and even parts of their family and leaving with nothing, whereas they once had, what we have in our safe, secure homes and money to put food on our tables and to kind of go and do what we want to do. And I think, it should really make us stop and think. And I hope it does. And again, to just remember this part as well. Wherever we stand to lift our eyes to heaven, that place is a holy of holies. Every human being created in God's image and likeness is a high priest. So when we look at people, we should remember that everyone that we meet has that image of God, that light of holiness, and try our best to treat them as such, even when maybe it's not so easy. Maybe we're not in the best mood, or we just forget and we look down on people, but we mustn't. We absolutely mustn't. We turn now to page 490 for our Torah reading. And I need 3 people. I need 2 people to open the ark, and I need somebody to take the scroll out. And I'm going to let you self-select. So especially if there's somebody who's not been up to the ark for a while or who'd like to come up, or, please do so. Self-select, folks. Somebody has to be able to take that scroll out. I still have a very dodgy wrist, so I need one relatively strong person, and it doesn't matter, male, female, whatever. If you don't have a broken arm or a bad back, you can probably do it. And 2 people to open the ark. You're just going to have to self-select. Come on. Come and open. And one more person. Okay, you can't take the scroll out. So I need one person who's strong enough to take the scroll out. A scroll remover. Thank you, Hillary. So assemble the people, men, women, and children, and the strangers in your cities to hear and learn to revere the Eternal One, your God, and observe faithfully all the precepts of this Torah. And let their children who do not yet know it hear, that they too may learn to revere the Eternal One, your God.
Please stand.
Please stand.
V'ha'edneinu b'toratecha, v'dabek lebeinu b'mitzvotecha, v'yached levaveinu, le'ahava u'yira et shemecha.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad.
Echad Eloheinu, Gadol Adonenu, Kadosh Shemo.
Gadlu Adonai iti, uneromema Shemo Yachdav.
L'cha Adonai Hagadol, Abahatiferet, Feret v'netzach v'chachod, ki kol b'shamayim u'va'aretz, ki kol b'shamayim u'va'aretz. L'cha Adonai hamamlacha v'hamit naseh לכל הראש.
Thank you. And we can resume our seats now. Scroll sitting down so everybody else can as well. Okay. Had to make sure it was still where I hold it to the side. We are reading from Leviticus. The portion is Shmeni, and it's in the Plow Chumash. You'll find it on page 814. There's some very interesting things in this, some very uninteresting things in this Torah reading, and some interesting things. The bit I'm reading today is a short bit about the dietary laws. Ya'amod David ben Avraham b'Sarah al HaTorah. Here's your blessings. Come this way. Here's your blessings.
Baruch hu et Adonai hamavorach.
Baruch Adonai Baruch Leolam Va'ed.
Baruch Adonai hamavorach le'olam va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech ha'olam asher b'chabanu mikol ha'amin v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai notei ha'torah.
This is where I'm starting. Find a bit of Adonai. Amen. Vaydaber Adonai el Moshe ve'el Acharon lemor alehem. Dibru el bnei Yisrael lemor. Zot hachaya asher tochelu mikol. Is it actually on the Torah? Is it actually showing the Torah? Have I got the Torah too far over one way?
No, that's right.
Okay. Suddenly looked up and got that. Zot hachaya asher tochelu mikol habehema asher al haaretz. Kol mafreset persa v'shasat shasa parsat meolot gera babechima ata tochelu ach et ze lo tochelu ממעלה הגרה these are such tongue twisters. ממרפסי הפרסה את הגמל, camel, כי מעלה גרה הוא יפרסה עינינו. מפריס טמא הוא לכם. זאת השפס כי מעולה גרה הוא ופרסה לא יפריס טמא הוא לכם. ואת הארנבה כי מעולה גרה hu ufresa lo hafreset tamehu lachem. Viet hachazer ki mafris presa hu u shasa parsa v'hu gera lo yagir tamehu lachem.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu, melech ha'olam, asher natan lanu Torah emet, v'chayei olam, nata b'tochenu. Baruch atah Adonai, noten haTorah.
I'm just handing that translation. So the very small amount that I read, I think, was enough to give you the idea of what we're talking about here, because this is the bit that I'm sure you know. And the Eternal spoke to Moses, saying to them, "Speak to the Israelite people thus. These are the creatures that you may eat from among all the land animals. Any animal that has hoofs with clefts through the hoof, and that chews the cud. This you may eat. The following, however, of those that either chew the cud or have full true hoofs, you shall not eat. The camel, though it chews the cud, it has no hoofs. So it's forbidden to you, tameh lachem. The daman, though it chews the cud, it has no hoofs. So it's unclean for you. The hare, though it chews the cud, it has no hoofs. It's unclean for you. And the swine, though it has hoofs, with the hoofs cleft all the way through, it does not chew the cud, so it's unclean for you. You shall not eat of their flesh or touch their carcasses, for they are unclean for you." Who's lifting the scroll?
Do you have a volunteer?
Do I have a volunteer, or is Vince going to do it? I think Vince might be doing it. Roman, no.
Yeah.
And we need the dressers back up here, please.
Romemu Adonai Eloheinu, Shachavu l'hakodsho. Romemu Adonai Eloheinu, Shachavu l'hakodsho. Ki kadosh Adonai Eloheinu, Romemu. Ki kadosh Adonai Eloheinu. Please hold the top symbols and place it.
Yes. And we rise for our community prayers, please. Page 493, let's read these together. Eternal God, whose dominion embraces the universe, we ask your blessing for our Sovereign Lady, Queen Elizabeth, and all the royal family, for those who govern our country and all who influence the quality of its national life. Make them conscious of their responsibility and teach them to exercise it in accordance with your will. May we all help to fashion in this country a society that excels in freedom and justice, tolerance and compassion, so that it may be a force for righteousness and peace in the life of humanity. May the one who blessed our ancestors bless all our brothers and sisters of the house of Israel who enter synagogues to pray and to give aid to those in need. May the Holy One, to whom all praise is due, hear their prayers and help them to fulfill their aspirations for good. Eternal God, our rock and redeemer, grant blessing to the state of Israel, created to fulfill an age-old dream and to be a haven for the oppressed. Inspire its leaders and citizens with faithfulness to the aims of its founders, to develop the land for the benefit of all its inhabitants, and to implement the prophetic ideals of liberty and justice. May they live in harmony with one another and in peace with their neighbors, and cause to come true once more the ancient vision, that out of Zion shall go forth Torah and the word of God from Jerusalem. Yahalelu et Shem Adonai, ki nizgav shemo levado.
Ado al eretz v'shamayim, v'yarem keren li'amo, tefila l'cho hazida, lifnei Yisrael am charovo. Hallelujah, hallelujah.
This is the covenant I will make with the house of Israel in time to come, says the Eternal One. I will put my teaching within them and engrave it on their hearts. I will be their God, and they shall be my people. No longer shall anyone need to teach a friend or a neighbor to know me, for they all shall know me, young and old alike.
Hashivenu Adonai Elecha v'nashuva Adesh Yameinu Kakedem Adesh Yameinu Kakedem.
Thank you. We can resume our seats. So we've had and the list, of course, goes on beyond what I read of forbidden animals. And every time I think that look at this, it's like, why these animals and not other animals? What's the reason? And in fact, the only reason that's given for any of these laws at all, in terms of animals, is you shall sanctify yourselves and be holy, for I am holy. So we're back to this whole idea of holiness in this particular section that also talks about sacrifices and has the story of Nadav and Abihu, who were the sons of Aaron, who brought, we know not what, but strange fire before the Eternal One and were just destroyed. So all of this, it's about holiness. But it seems a rather arbitrary list, as a matter of fact, if you look at it. And I suppose one argument that's often been made is the permitted animals, birds and fish, are often the more usual case. So if you think about, and it's the exceptions to the rule that are forbidden. So it's probably easiest to think about fish, where you think about things that swim in the sea. So everything with fish and scales, which is the normal situation, right? Or so we think. The usual things, the most common things that are cold-blooded and are in the sea, have fins and scales in the water. The uncommon things don't. And so maybe, pulling out the uncommon ones and saying, don't eat these. But frankly, we don't know. But I've always held, and when I talk to people about kashrut food laws, I've always held that its purpose is somehow to sanctify the act of eating. We have to think before we eat. Animals just do it by instinct. They're hungry, they have a sniff around, and if they reckon it won't kill them, they eat it. And that's as far as it goes, right? But we're aspiring to something higher than that. So we're aspiring to try to think about what we do, to not just act on our instincts, because we also have instincts. And also, in the case of eating meat, we're killing a living creature. And so spending some thought about that is useful. We shouldn't just do it wantonly. We can't just, if we're feeling a bit peckish, hack a bit of meat off of whatever is passing by and shove it in our mouth. We have to think about what we're doing. And that's that, I think, that attempt to elevate, to move ourselves into a more holy frame of mind, a frame of mind where we're remembering things. We have to think. That makes us remember that we're stewards over the earth. We don't have the right to just destroy it because we're hungry. We don't have, and in fact, like all of the other ritual acts, they're there to help us to remember who we are and how we should live in the world. Some have argued over the years that these dietary laws are also there to be a signal to others. And indeed, the Kaifeng Jews were called those who don't eat pork. That's their name in Chinese, although I can't actually say it because I never learned it. But that's what they are called in Chinese, the people who don't eat pork.
What are they called again?
The Kaifeng Jews. They're pretty much, they no longer exist in that part of China, but one still occasionally can run into people who can trace their ancestry back. I knew somebody in Salt Lake, a guy called Richard Lee, who was a partner of my best ever friend, and he was descended from the Kaifeng Jews, and he knew that about his parents. I think, but that was a long time ago, and I think by now probably most of those linkages have been gone. But historically, yeah, there was quite a substantial Jewish community in that part of China. But I still go back to, rather than just being a signal to others, that it really should be a reminder to ourselves. And so I'm not particularly bothered. I will usually say to people, well, these are if I'm teaching somebody who's choosing Judaism, well, these are the food laws. We don't necessarily understand why, but these are the possibilities. And one thing we have to do as liberal Jews is choose for ourselves. We have to know what things are, and then we have to decide how we incorporate that into our own lives. Whether it's, and I have had people, and I myself once upon a time kept a fully kosher kitchen. I no longer do. And I've had people that have chosen that route, and people who have said, well, okay, I'm not going to eat pork. That's it. Or, I'm just not going to eat things that obviously are pork. So I'm not going to eat a ham sandwich or sit down to a glazed ham. But I'm not going to really read the minutiae about it. And people have to make, and that's what we have to do. We have to choose. We have to make our own decisions, but we have to make informed decisions. And to me, that's part of what it means to be Jewish. Because if you just do things automatically, they've lost their power to teach you anything. It's not good enough to say, well, this is how I cook because this is how my mother cooked. Yeah, but why? Why? Are you thinking about anything? And I guess because Yisrael, we're the people who wrestle with God and wrestle with Torah. And that's been one of the hallmarks of progressive Jewish movement, is that we don't just do things by rote because somebody told us, but that we have to think about it for ourselves. So for us, we choose every day how we live our lives as Jews. We make that decision every single day. And to me, that's the power of Judaism for me, and the power of that needing to choose, because I can't just take it for granted. I have to get up in the morning and think, all right, I know this is how I'm supposed to live, and this is what I have to do. And of course, obviously, I don't get it right every time because none of us do, but it's that act of thinking. And I also, I guess, still often think that what comes out of our mouths is more important than what goes in them. So how we talk to people, how we treat them, how we act. So that's my 5 cents on kashrut. Having had absolutely no time to prepare anything, less than 24 hours notice that I was doing this service. So very sketchy, but just some of my thoughts. And with that, we are going to turn to page 519 and rise for the short version of the Aleinu. Baruch Adonai Leolam. Amen. Amen. Baruch Adonai Elohim, Elohei Yisrael, Osei Niflaot Levado, Uvaruch Shem Kevodo Leolam, Vayemalech Kevodo et Kol Haaretz. Amen. Amen. The eternal God shall rule over all the earth. On that day, the eternal God shall be one and known to be one. May your love, O God, rest upon us, and we rest our hope in you. All the nations that you have made shall come and bow down before you and honor your name. Let God be praised by day. Let God be praised by night. Let God be praised when we lie down. Let God be praised when we rise up. Avinu Shabbat our God in heaven, let your unity be acknowledged and your sovereignty established forever. Reign over us now and always. The eternal God reigns, has reigned, and will reign forever. The growing good of the world is partly dependent on unhistoric acts, and that things are not so ill with you and me as they might have been is half owing to the number who lived faithfully a hidden life and rest in unvisited tombs. Even when they are gone, the departed are with us. They inspire us to live as in their higher moments they themselves sought to live. We remember them now. They remain in our hearts. They are a continual blessing. And this Shabbat, we remember Solomon Plachta, the father of Pamela Dakar Silver, Adele Myers, the mother of Judy Thwaites and Jill Chavron, and George Clare, the father of Jackie Jessup, and the grandfather to Lydia and Nicola. As I look around the room, if anyone else has any names they'd like to add. I think it's also fitting to remember Madeleine Albright, the former Secretary of State, who only came to know of her Jewish heritage quite late in life, but was quite respectful and pleased of it, and she died this last week. And of course, we think of all those who are losing their lives in Ukraine and, in fact, in other places in the world through acts of violence. And so we say together on page 524, Yit Gadal, V'yit Kadash, Shemei Rabbah, B'alma Divrach Hirutei, V'amlich Malchutei, B'chai Echon V'yom Echon, V'chayei D'chol Beit Yisrael, B'agalah V'zman Kariv, V'imru. Amen. Yehei Shemei Rabbah Mevorach, V'olam Elal Me'almaya, Yitbarach V'yishtabach V'yitba'ar V'yitramam V'yitnaseh, V'yitadar V'yitalei V'yitalal Shmei D'Kudashah B'ruchu, Le'ela Min Kol Berchata V'shirata, Tishbachata V'nechemata, Da'amiran B'alma V'imru. Amen. Yehei Shalom Rabbah Min Shemaya, V'chayim Aleinu, V'al Kol Yisrael, V'imru. Amen. Osei Shalom V'imromav, Hu Yasei Shalom, Aleinu V'al Kol Yisrael, V'al Kol B'nei Adam, V'imru. Amen. We can resume our seats. Are there any announcements? I'll try to remember.
A few announcements. First to thank Janice and Vince for stepping in at very short notice
it was the last moment.
Well, we're thinking of Rabbi. I really hope he's getting better soon, and look forward to seeing him very shortly. Also, another. Well, I want to thank all the people that have donated to the Ukraine appeal. You can see all the boxes around here. We've had lots of donations, and thank you so much as well to everyone who's taken part in the staffing, the organising, the boxing up, and I see sitting here. We've got Linda here. I saw you spending so long putting labelling and sorting. It's so much time spent, but it's very, very valued to the people of Ukraine where that's been going. 2 events to look forward to, just to take Janet's food-related theme. We have 3 weeks to go to Passover and the communal Seder on the Saturday night of the 16th. There are still some spaces available there if you want to book in to that for a very jolly evening. And then the following weekend on the Sunday is a tea party. So details are in the bulletin. Do let the office know if you want to go to that.
I love how that tea party was planned just after Passover. It's always a bit tricky. We are going to close with the words, the song, which is the words from the I just suddenly forgot his name. Anyway, we're closing with Kol Ha'olam Kulo, and it is by, I know, none of us can remember his name now, from, I can't remember his name, but I can tell you where he was born, and he was born in Mizhibesh in Ukraine, and from there moved to Breslau and then ended up finally dying in another place in Ukraine. And I've been to both his birthplace and his the place where he's buried. And he's the son-in-law. I can remember everything about it, but his name.
Is he Rabbi Nachman of Britain?
Yes, thank you, Reb Nachman. He's the son-in-law of the Baal Shem Tov. It's awful when your brain just fries over. Page 201. Kol Ha'olam Kulo. The whole world is a very narrow bridge, and the important thing is not to be afraid. And I think, that's a really good sentiment for what's going on at the moment, that we just have to keep walking and try not to fall off.
Ha'olam kulo geshet sameot geshet sameot geshet sameot kol ha'olam kulo geshet sameot geshet V'haika, lo lefached kalal. V'haika, lo lefached kalal. Kol ha'olam kulo geshet sameot, geshet sameot, geshet sameot. Ha'olam kulo geshet sameot, geshet sameot. V'haika, lo lefached ולא לפחד כלל והעיקר והעיקר לא לפחד כלל.
Please rise for concluding benediction. May the source of strength, who blessed the ones before us, help us find the courage today and every day to make our lives a blessing. Let us say.
Amen.